Located in Central Europe, Hungary is somewhat of an anomaly. It is one of the oldest European countries, yet its language is not Indo-European and is more closely related to Finnish. Hungary has a rich history, and TripAdvisor ranks it the 7th best cultural destination in the world in 2023. A nation of diversity, Hungary's capital, Budapest, was formed when the three cities of Pest, Buda, and Óbuda combined in 1873. There have been many famous Hungarians, including Harry Houdini, and the historical medieval kingdom of Hungary was the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler. To learn more about this fascinating country, stay with us as we count down 6 unique things you can find in Hungary. Number 6. Europe's largest thermal lake. Although Hungary is landlocked, it still has its fair share of water. Home to Central Europe's largest freshwater lake, Lake Balaton, the Hungarians are not short of beaches and swimming spots. But their thermal springs make the water in Hungary so unique. There are more than 1,300 thermal water springs in Hungary, and each is said to have its own healing properties. Lake Heves is the largest thermal lake in Europe and dates back to the formation of the basalt mountains in the region. Archaeological evidence shows that the area around the lake has been inhabited since the Stone Age, and the Hungarians have used the lake as a healing thermal spa ever since. There are many legends around Lake Heves. One Roman tale tells of a Christian nurse who prayed to the Virgin Mary to help her heal a sick child. The Holy Virgin then manifested a hot spring, which created the lake. The nurse immersed the boy in the lake, and he was completely healed. The child was Flavius Theodosius, the Eastern Roman emperor who made Christianity the Roman Empire's official religion. Another story goes that a cowherd observed a cow with an infection in her feet that kept disappearing into a shrubbery. On closer inspection, he found a small stream of warm water. After bathing his sore feet, the cowherd discovered the water's healing properties and built the lake for Hungarians to receive the benefits of the water. There is also a love story that concerns the lake's healing powers. It is said that Chobans and Tatika were enemies, but the commander of Chobans castle fell in love with the daughter of his enemy after seeing her leaning on her elbow in the tower of her castle. The commander went to Tatika castle, fought for the woman he loved, and won. On first meeting his betrothed, he discovered she was lame in both feet. A wise woman suggested they build a house on the shores of Lake Heves so the woman could bathe in the warm water. After a few weeks, her feet were healed, and the two lived happily ever after. Number 5. The largest synagogue in Europe. Located in Budapest, the Dohány Synagogue is the second largest in the world and the largest in Europe. It was built between 1845 and 1859 by the Jewish community of Pest. As there was no distinctively Jewish architecture to speak of, they chose a Moorish revival style due to links with Arabic and Middle Eastern culture. The influence of the design came from Islamic buildings in North Africa and medieval Spain. Restoration of the synagogue took place from 1991 to 1998 due to the damage it sustained during the first half of the 20th century. In 1939, the right-wing Hungarian group, the Arrow Cross Party, bombed it. This party was pro-Nazi, and the bombing occurred in the lead-up to World War II. During the war, the Germans used the synagogue's remains as a radio base, and during the Holocaust, it marked the border of the Budapest ghetto. When the Romanian and Soviet armies drove Nazi forces out of Budapest, Dohány Synagogue sustained further damage, and the building was turned into a prayer house for the remaining Jewish population during communist rule. The restoration was undertaken with state funding and private donations, and today the Budapest Jewish Museum, containing a Holocaust memorial, is next door to the synagogue. Number 4. A prison that held the real-life Dracula. Buda Castle was built in the 13th century, and underneath its foundations lies the Labyrinth of Buda. This labyrinth is shrouded in mystery and is a colossal maze of caves and tunnels, and it is easy to picture Vlad Tepes, the inspiration behind the vampiric character Dracula, chained up in these dark and damp tunnels. However, he wasn't ever there. The Buda Labyrinth is a popular tourist spot, and the owners like to play up to the myth that Vlad was imprisoned in this underground cave system. Tours of the labyrinth are full of stagecraft to ramp up the spooky atmosphere. In actuality, Vlad had a much more civilized time during his decade imprisoned in Hungary. Vlad ended up in custody when he traveled to Hungary looking for financial support in his ongoing conflict against the Ottoman Turks. However, the Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus, had his own financial worries and had already spent the money that the papacy had given him to take his forces to war against the Turks. Corvinus had no interest in warfare, instead wanting to cultivate a renaissance in Hungary. However, he knew that having the much-feared Vlad by his side would be strategically advantageous, and having Vlad in his court would scare the Turkish forces. Corvinus manipulated the Pope into believing Vlad wanted peace with the Turks and had committed treason. The Pope fell for the ruse, and Corvinus placed Vlad under house arrest at the royal palace of Visegrad. Far from being tortured and languishing in dark tunnels, Vlad's time in Hungary was spent walking the lavish gardens and seeing the money that could have funded his army being spent on beautification. According to visiting officials, he apparently sated his bloodlust by torturing birds and mice. Despite this weird hobby, he managed to attract his second wife during his time imprisoned in Hungary, and a condition of his eventual release was that he should marry Ilona Zelagi, Corvinus's cousin. Number 3. A castle that used to be cardboard. Hungary is full of historical buildings and castles, some dating back to the 1200s. So it might be surprising to discover that one of the most beautiful was only built just over 100 years ago. Vajdahunyad Castle is located in Budapest City Park and looks every bit like a medieval structure. However, it was actually first constructed in 1896 for the Millennial Exhibition celebrating the 1000th birthday of the Hungarian state. At first, it was intended to be a temporary exhibit and was built of wooden planks and cardboard. Originally called the Historical Building Complex, it was designed by Iñak Alpár and intended to encapsulate many of Hungary's different historical design features. The structure was a huge hit and quickly became beloved by the Hungarians, so much so that between 1904 and 1908, it was made into a permanent building, complete with stained glass windows, marble staircases, and elaborately painted vaulted ceilings. Vajdahunyad Castle was designed to showcase the history of the Magyars by combining various classical architectural styles. Iñak Alpár took elements of historical buildings in Hungary and amalgamated them into one cohesive structure. Romanesque elements can be seen in multiple areas, including the auditory, the Tower of Torture, and a replica of the portal of the Church of Yak village, which was picked as the best surviving example of Romanesque architecture. The castle took its name from the Gothic part of the building, based on the real Vajdahunyad Castle, now known as the Hunadora. Located in Transylvania, which was once part of the Hungarian state, it represented the best example of Hungarian Gothic. Interestingly, Vlad Tepes is thought to have also been imprisoned in Hunadora, also known as Corvin Castle, by John Hunyadi. It is also speculated that he met his first wife while imprisoned here. He certainly had a type. Bram Stoker imagined his character, Dracula, living in Corvin Castle, and his bust can be found in Vajdahunyad Castle in Budapest. The final styles incorporated here are Renaissance and Baroque, reflecting the exquisite and rich palaces in Royal Hungary and Austria-Hungary. Although Vajdahunyad Castle may not be as old as some Hungarian buildings, it has become a historical building in its own right and a comprehensive study of Hungarian architecture. Number 2. The First Cowboys. When we think of cowboys, our thoughts usually turn to America's Wild West. However, Hungary has its own, much older cowboy culture. The Chico culture originated in the Great Hungarian Plain and developed over 2,000 years of pastoral lifestyle. These mounted herdsmen live a semi-nomadic lifestyle, much like the American cowboys. They feel this life was forced on them by the rugged landscape of the plains, known as the puszta. The peasantry of Hungary developed its own class system, which was generally related to the animals they kept. Horses were seen as noble animals and somewhat of a luxury, as they did not produce anything, unlike sheep, cows, and chickens. As Chicos were the only ones to be able to afford to keep horses, they came to be seen as the aristocrats of the peasant culture. If the Chicos were the aristocrats, then those of the Hortabag region were the kings. As well as horses, they wore blue clothing made from expensive materials. Their clothes were hand-painted and starkly contrasted with the usual plain white fabric of the majority of the peasantry. Blue dyes were hard to obtain and particularly expensive. So the blue worn by the Hortabag Chicos clearly indicated they were prosperous. Because of their outward displays of wealth, the Chicos often clashed with the poorer members of the peasant society. Hungary's most famous culinary dish, goulash, originates from these cowherders, and the original meaning of gulyas translates to herdsman. Number 1. Busosyaras Carnival Festival. This 6-day-long festival is a tradition still practiced at Muhacs in southern Hungary. In 2009, UNESCO inscribed it on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The festival marks the end of winter and involves people, traditionally men, dressing up in frightening wooden masks and big woolly cloaks. This tradition came from the Croatian minority in Muhacs. It has been embraced by the city and is now considered their emblem. The art of making the fearsome wooden masks is passed on through the generations, as are the festival traditions. The carnival was first mentioned in a 1783 record and is attributed to an ethnic group called the Sokti, who settled in the area after fleeing from the Turks. According to legend, the Sokti disguised themselves in masks and fleeces and returned to their city, scaring away the superstitious Turks. This tradition is still practiced today and is becoming an increasingly popular spectacle. The procession of masked figures ends with the ceremonial burning of winter, usually in the effigy of a coffin, and a welcoming of spring. Hungary is undoubtedly an exceptional country with a rich history. If you know any unique facts about Hungary, let us know in the comments below. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about Hungary, check out our book, History of Hungary, a captivating guide to Hungarian history, starting from the Roman Empire through the Magyar tribes, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Hungarian Revolution to the present. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.